One of the most charming neighborhoods of Paris, of course, is Montmartre, where the famous Sacre Coeur Basilica stands. It's an imposing white building perched on top of the hill, and it's as much an icon of the city as the Eiffel Tower. And here to tell us a bit more about it is Paris Muse educator and Montmartre's own Guillaume Fabrelus. Hi, Guillaume. Nice to have you on the show.
Hi, Jeannie.
Now, you yourself are also a Montmartre resident. What makes Montmartre so charming?
Montmartre is a hill located in the north of Paris, and it's a beautiful neighborhood. It was the home to artists, revolutionaries, and religious communities. It was incorporated only 150 years ago to the city of Paris and retains an incomparable village atmosphere. It has quaint little streets leading up to windmills and vineyards. And it's on top of that hill that the Sacre Coeur Basilica, a basilica dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, was built.
Now, Montmartre is also famous as an artist's neighborhood, and isn't it where Picasso lived for a while?
You're right, Jeannie. Picasso lived in Montmartre with other great artists such as Braque, Modigliani, Juan Gris, or Kees van Dongen. And as the basilica was still being built when they moved to the neighborhood, it became the subject of some of their paintings.
So when was the basilica built exactly, and why?
For this, we need to go back to the time before the basilica was built. The year from July 1870 to May 1871 is known as the Année Terrible, a terrible year. Two tragic events forever marked the collective psyche in France. The humiliating defeat of the country in the Franco-Prussian War that led to Paris' subsequent occupation at the hands of the Prussians, and the Commune de Paris, Paris Commune, a popular, destructive and bloody uprising against the fall and decadence of the empire. The view was that such an accumulation of bad luck could only mean one thing: France is straight from the righteous path, and God was punishing the country. And if God was punishing France, then the country needed to make amends.
So they built the church to make amends to God?
Absolutely. The Archbishop approved of the building of the church, and it was voted in the public interest by the French Parliament. You have to remember that actually this church was entirely funded on people's subscription. So donations were collected throughout the country, and it was the amount of subscriptions rather than the amount actually made. I'm going to go back. It was the number of subscriptions rather than their amount that actually mattered. So next time you're in Montmartre, go look closely at the stone of the church, because sometimes the names of the donors were engraved into the stone. And as it was very expensive to have your name engraved on the outside facade, only very few names are visible from the street.
And I imagine such a big, imposing building like the Eiffel Tower must have taken a long time to build?
Absolutely, almost 50 years actually. The construction started in 1875 and it finished in 1923, delayed by the First World War. In comparison, the Eiffel Tower took only 2 years to be built.
But they were built roughly at the same time?
Absolutely, they were built exactly at the same time. And it is interesting to see the contrast between the two monuments, the Eiffel Tower being entirely secular, whereas the Sacre Coeur is, of course, religious.
So why did they pick the Montmartre area to build the Sacre Coeur?
Montmartre had always been a sort of sacred hill for Christians, where their martyrs had first spilled their blood, where Christianity was partly born in a country. And actually, one possible origin for the name Montmartre is the Mount of the Martyrs. Also, it is where the popular uprising La Commune de Paris that I mentioned had started, so what better place to make amends than there? Other spots had been suggested, such as the place where Garnier was just finishing his opera house. It was proposed to tear it all down. Can you imagine Paris without its opera?
Guillaume, now, I know you yourself were born and raised in Montmartre. How do people who live there feel about having this beautiful church up in their neighborhood?
In the 19th century, when the construction of the church started, it was highly controversial, actually. It was seen as a sign of oppression. You have to remember, Montmartrois had taken part in La Commune, the popular uprising, and 7,000 men had been killed by the state. Themselves, they were very anti-clerical. They had even taken hostage and killed the Archbishop of Paris, so that the basilica was built on their hill was not at all to their likings. But today it changed. Today, Parisians meet in front of the Sacre Coeur to enjoy what is probably one of the most beautiful views of Paris. And if you go there at sunset, it's a real treat. It's also where the last standing vineyard of Paris is. And if you go there during the Harvest Festival, you have food and wine stands organized just in front of the church, so you can actually visit the neighborhood with a glass of wine and some cheese.
That's the best way to visit Paris. Thank you so much for that, Guillaume Fabrelus, and that close-up look at Montmartre. Don't forget, if you want to get more information about Paris Muse tours of Montmartre or of any of the major landmarks or museums in Paris, you can always check out their website, which is parismuse.com.